chiefly the Americans' trading relationships and Trump's record imposing and now threatening additional tariffs. The Canadian government says it's preparing for a possible Trump win, with one of the ministers leading that charge telling me on this program yesterday that he thinks Canada's message is punching through.
If you want a growth agenda for North America, Canada has to be at the center. So that's kind of the argument we're putting. And I would say this is well received by the people who worked around him. So we're going to continue to obviously state our case.
Let's bring back the front bench to talk about what that might mean. Christy Clark, Gary Marr, and Gary Dewar are here. Gary Dewar, I'll start with you. You, of course, served previously in the capacity of Canada's ambassador to the U.S. What do you think that job would be like at this juncture?
Well, I think our present ambassador is an excellent ambassador, and of course, we were involved with elections that were very, hard-fought elections when Barack Obama was campaigning against Mitt Romney, and we made a point to go to all the conventions, and you get invited as a Canadian ambassador, and you meet not only the transition teams for the various competitors, you also meet the senators, the congressional representatives, and of course Canada's very, very important card with the United States is we're their biggest customer. And so you look at all those swing states that are so important, everybody's talking about, they're actually almost all of them on the Canadian border. You know, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and those are their biggest customers are Canada. So you want to make sure that they are aware of that. Many of them are. You just had Philippe Champagne on the show. He's all over the place. He's the Energizer Bunny in terms of representing Canada in the United States. I even heard from some of my sources in Nebraska. I guess he was chasing down Warren Buffett, but he was in Omaha, Nebraska. So you hear him all over the place, and more credit to him because his energy and his enthusiasm is good for our country. But we've got an excellent ambassador, an excellent team there. And we're going to have some challenges, whether it's Trump or Harris. One on Harris, she actually has come out with a platform of a 28% capital gains tax, lower than Biden's, slightly higher than Trump's. Canada's got a 65% capital gains tax. So some of this competition and the economy is partly in our backyard. And so I think we've got to be very aware of that. I think Trump made the right decision not having a third debate based on what happened on Tuesday night. That was a wise decision. I don't think he did that well that evening. But one of the things, the last thing I want to mention we have to deal with, and Gary Marr is very aware of this, and I know Christy is, one of the biggest asks for the United States, whether it's a Democratic government or a Republican government, is going to be any change in the trade agreement, the North American trade agreement. We're going to be expected to side with the United States against the increased number of state-owned enterprises in Mexico. So that's a big, big issue. We took the right position on energy with Mexico and the United States, but that's going to be a big, big task for Canada to be aware of and prepared for, no matter what happens at the election time.
Let me ask you, Christy, about a few of those things. First of all, do you think Trump made the right call with no second debate?
Well, I made the right call for him. Yeah. I mean, there should be a second debate. I thought that in the first debate, it was weird because I don't watch a lot of his rallies. It was really weird to see him rambling like that, and I don't think he landed very many punches. He wasn't impressive, and I think people had low expectations. She really overperformed. So I'm not surprised he said no. If you have the choice and you lose the first debate and you don't think you're going to be very good in the second one, you probably make the right decision for yourself, at least, not to do it. But I would say on the trade stuff, first of all, Gary Dewar was a fantastic ambassador from Canada to the United States. And one of the reasons he was so good is he built a huge network of people amongst governors and state people who were putting tons of pressure on their congressmen and senators to follow the right path. And he was very, very influential in creating relationships for Canada. I don't know if that network is still quite as strong down there. But in terms of the question of which one would be better, I don't think either of them they'll be better necessarily, because both of them are really pro-protectionist. And, you know, she was there when Biden was bringing in Buy America. She was there when they sat on their hands and we wanted to solve dairy and softwood lumber and a bunch of other stuff. But they do need Canada's critical minerals. They need to secure the supply chain in North America. There are some things they need from us. And I think the big difference between Trump and Harris with respect to Canada's relationship is going to be, we understand that President Trump really does not like our prime minister. And that personal relationship, when it's not working, can really get in the way of finding our trade, of solving a trade problem. I think Kamala Harris does have a pretty good relationship with our current prime minister. So from that perspective, it doesn't sound like it should mean a lot, but it will.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think all three of you will know, of course, that those personal relationships are important in the broader relationship. Gary, what would you be watching for over the next 6 weeks if you were still serving in your capacity representing Alberta in the U.S.?
Well, I had the great opportunity to work under two great Canadian ambassadors, the first one being Michael Wilson and then Gary Dewar. And I think that, you know, the kind of outreach that was done before the election was really important. And with Gary, we had sort of come up with a list of some 20 people that we thought could be appointed to cabinet. We managed to get meetings with a number of them before they were appointed to cabinet positions, which helped solidify our ability to get meetings with them after they were put in place by Barack Obama. And I just want to go back to the debate for a bit. I'd say this, you know, there are still voters that are undecided. And that means that undecided people still think that Donald Trump may be a viable person as president. And no doubt in the debate, Ms. Harris really did a fantastic job of making him look, frankly, foolish. But having said that, she didn't go far enough to outline what her program was going to be on how she was going to deal with things like affordability. She did talk about the importance of the middle class, but was really lacking on some areas that undecided voters are concerned about, be it immigration, being, you know, affordability, and so on. And the reason why I think that she doesn't have, you know, granular policy detail on this is because she didn't have to go through the bruising impact of going through a primary. So she didn't have to have the time to devote to that. And she just comes in as candidate following the announcement by President Biden. So I think she's still got a ways to go. Should there be another debate? I don't think so. I can understand why both of them wouldn't want to. But I'd be looking in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks exactly what Kamala Harris is going to put out as messaging to bring over those undecided voters to her side.
It's so fascinating, Gary Dewar, to think about the idea that in a contest that is as, you know, that there are such diametrically opposing options, like such polarizing options, that there are people who think they might go either way, but there are a few 100,000 of them, and ultimately they will determine the election. What kind of message do you think will get through to them?
Well, it's a very personal decision for all of them. Number one, the first decision they're going to make if they're undecided is, are they going to turn out? And that's why sometimes the polls are so very accurate, but sometimes they miss when they can't get the turnout numbers properly, because it's much harder to gauge that and predict that. So that's why you had a number of pollsters thinking that Hillary was going to beat Donald Trump, and of course that didn't happen, and it was based on turnout. And it's still the undecided may turn out or may not turn out, but they will. You know, a state like Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes. It could, you know, as Pennsylvania goes, the whole election usually goes, and it'll be those 10,000 undecided voters, maybe even less than that, in that state that may determine what the course of the future of a country of over 350 million people. So electoral politics is totally different than parliamentary politics, as everybody knows, listening to the show and watching it. But it is so sensitive in just 1 or 2% for what it means for 350 million people, and by definition, the free world. So it's you're going to have a lot of fun on your power play shows, Vassy, in the next 7 weeks predicting that. I look forward to your prediction.
Yeah, no, I would never make one, but I think the only one is the safe one that you said. It will be fascinating to see. I got just 30 seconds left. Last word to you, Christy.
Well, I think let's not forget Tim Walz is there. Coach Dad is there, and he's from a state that does a lot of trade with Canada. He understands very, very well the impact that Canada can have on the American economy. And if there's no free trade deal, or there isn't one that works for both countries, it's not good for the United States either.